Throughout history, political bodies, like other forms of collective power, have organized themselves according to strict hierarchical lines of authority. There was always someone or a group of people being in charge at the top of a decision-making chain. While hierarchies are not vanishing, profound changes in the nature of technology, demographics, emancipation of people, and even the global economy are giving rise to new powerful models of participation based on real online community collaboration and self-organization rather than on hierarchy and control. What are the necessary elements while applying these new models in order to avoid chaotic or non-relevant policies for people and the future of their communities? With what principles and best applicable ideas this change could become the tool for the right choices, promoting not just local and global discussions, but local and global solutions. Thank you.
The debate that reigns between, on the one hand, coherence, and on the other hand, self-organization, I think is a confused debate. Why? Because what the debate implies is that the only way you can have coherence is by some sort of top-down administration. And that self-organization, that people having a say over their lives, that people participating, not, I want to be clear about what that is, but implies and necessarily creates incoherence, right? Chaos. I think both claims are false. So, if you believed, like a Leninist, if you believed that the only way you could marshal, you could have a mass movement, a movement of millions of people that had a coherent program and a coherent goal, and that acted in a coherent way to win that, was by having a top-down authoritarian apparatus bossing it around, you would, I think, have no choice but to try to build that coherent apparatus, that authoritarian top-down apparatus. Because, now, a lot of people on my part of the left might get upset at hearing such a thing, because they too harbor the fear that that's what would be necessary. In other words, what I'm saying is, look, every year, I don't know, 10, 50 million people die of hunger and starvation. I mean, tens of millions of people die unnecessarily. Preventable diseases, etc., 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 etc. In the United States, there are 7 million homeless people each night and 7 million empty hotel rooms. That's insane. There are 30 million people below the poverty line. 30 million, 3 times the population of Greece in the United States are below the poverty line, and so on. So when you see all that, if you believe that the only way you can generate a movement that is massive and coherent and strong and committed is by having a kind of a military discipline, a top-down authoritarian discipline, if that's the only way you can do it, then that's what you do. And if you are committed ultimately to participation and self-management, then what you say to yourself is, I will do that, but it will be a stopgap. It's imposed by the horror of past history, and we will do what's necessary to win a new world, and then we will disband that authoritarian apparatus, and we will generate a better world. Okay, now, the critic says in the debate, wait, you can't disband it. Once you've created it, it will persist. Okay, now that's fair enough. But the Leninist responds, yeah, but if you don't create it, you get nowhere. I'm willing to risk it. I agree with you. The smart Leninist would say to this anarchist or this libertarian, I agree with you. It is an incredible danger that it will persist. But in its absence, we will get nowhere. And so we must build it, but build it carefully. Build it with restraints, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's what the good Leninist would say. I respect the good Leninist. I respect that Leninist. The Leninist who says, I want authoritarian structures because authoritarian structures are wonderful, that person I have no time for. That's despicable, right? But the person who says, I want these authoritarian structures because history has bequeathed us a set of circumstances which are so horrific that we cannot get out of them without it, and who really believes that, and who then says, and I understand the need to pursue those structures in a way that will enable us to get beyond them, I can respect that person. I don't agree with them. The reason I don't agree with them is because I think they're wrong. I think it's wrong. It isn't just a value issue, it's wrong. It is not true that the only way to build a movement that is massive and coherent is by having authoritarian structures. In fact, the opposite is the case. There is zero chance, I think, in the modern world that we will build a movement in the United States of 100 million people that is authoritarian. There is no way an authoritarian apparatus will inspire and enrich and attract and hold that many working people, right? And involve them in a coherent project. It is inconceivable. It will not happen. So it's exactly the opposite that's the case. You must, and now the Leninist has a reply. The libertarian or the anarchist can say, but wait, you can't win that way. You can't galvanize that opposition. You can't engender that movement. You haven't been able to do much of anything ever in that vein, right? You haven't formed those movements will not exist. In order to have a movement, we have to have a project that enrich people's lives, not that forces them to be obedient and subservient. People aren't going to give themselves to being obedient and subservient. So we have to do that. We must do that. Same idea as the Lenin is saying we must do the other. We must do that if we're going to win, and we have to attain coherence. And the Leninist says back, and why do we have to attain coherence? Because you can't overcome the state and the government and the corporations and everything else with everybody doing their own thing. The Leninist is right about that. You don't win that way. And winning matters. So we must win, so we must have coherence. We must have a movement that's powerful and that can express itself and that can take consistent and coherent positions and can battle for them. And the Leninist says you can't get that unless you have the top down. And the reply from the libertarian or the anarchist, my reply has to be yes, we can. And the way we can is by doing something new in history, by having real participation, by having the membership and the whole collectivity of people who participate being all leaders, being all aware of what's going on, being all in possession of the vision, being all in possession of the strategy, being all able to participate. That doesn't preclude them acting together. That creates the basis for acting together. Shared vision, shared goals, shared strategy creates the basis for it. So my answer would be, I think I don't want to dismiss all Leninists the way sometimes libertarian and leftists do by acting as though all Leninists want to be dictators, all Leninists, aspire to repression or something like that. I think that's nonsense. There are Leninists all over the world who aspire to the same liberty and freedom and justice and equity as libertarians and anarchists aspire to, right? They just sincerely think that to get that, you must have this old-fashioned apparatus, this old-fashioned top-down coherence. And my reply is no, that's wrong. Not only is that not necessary, it is destructive of attaining the goal. And it isn't just destructive of attaining the goal because after we win, it will repress us, right? It's destructive of attaining the goal because it will prevent us from winning anything. Because there is no way that huge numbers of people are going to align themselves with an authoritarian top-down project that makes them subordinate and obedient, right? It's just not going to happen. So my reply is, instead, we have to have a movement that is aware, that is conscious, that is educated, that is participatory, that people are involved in, that meets people's daily needs, and that is coherent. And, it's a big task to build such a thing. But then again, changing the world is a big task.